This week, Donald Trump claimed that overturning Roe was, quote, really working out well for people. But we are seeing just how untrue that is and how messy it can be when individual states are left to regulate reproductive rights. On Wednesday, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments over whether Idaho's near total abortion ban violates federal law by preventing doctors from properly treating women with pregnancy complications. Down in Arizona, the state Senate is poised to take up a bill that would repeal their Civil War-era abortion ban. The State House narrowly passed the legislation this week, but a majority of Republicans voted to keep the ban in place. Joining us now at the table, Michelle Goodwin, professor of constitutional law and global health policy at Georgetown Law School. She's the author of Policing the Womb, Invisible Women, and the Criminalization of Motherhood. And every time I read that title, Michelle Goodwin, it seems like you were clairvoyant.
Too prescient.
Literally. The Solicitor General went before the Supreme Court this week, and she argued that pregnant women in medical crisis situations are being flown out of the state of Idaho, literally airlifted, because the medical care that they need is an abortion and they can't get one.
That's right, that they've been airlifted. 6 times the number of women that were in the year prior. It's extraordinary. Justice Sotomayor, you heard the frustration in her voice as she was engaged in the questioning. You also heard from the conservatives matters that are completely inconsistent with their viewpoint on textualism. Let's remember that what's at stake here is a federal law called the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act. Very specifically, 40 years ago, Congress anticipated that poor women, women in distress who are pregnant, deserve to be stabilized, deserve to be able to live, and that otherwise they would be dumped. The point that Justice Sotomayor was making, isn't it another version of dumping when you have to get on a helicopter and be airlifted because you will not receive care at this hospital?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting is when Dobbs came down, everybody in the reproductive access space that I spoke to, that really all of our colleagues spoke to, they say these things would happen, right?
Yes.
They said not just the airlifting, but also that these cases would pop up, that these kinds of laws would be there, that the court would have to kind of reap what they sow.
Yes, the criminalization. One piece that hasn't been acknowledged in any of this, as the conservatives on the court said, well, this is strange. Why should federal law preempt here? How could federal law use its purse dollars? Well, the federal government has been doing this for a while now. It did this because historically black patients were dumped. Black patients dying on the front steps of hospitals that refused to admit them. Black patients being left in corridors in white hospitals where they refused to be treated. And it was part of the civil rights legacy of Lyndon Baines Johnson, President Johnson, to make sure that there would be legislation put forward that could save black patients' lives. And so this is a corollary to that.
As you often remind us, we are now living in a new Jane Crow era.
That is exactly right. That's exactly what this is. And keep in mind that there are medical wards that would otherwise treat women in Idaho that have said, we don't want to do it because we are concerned about our doctors being prosecuted, losing their medical licenses to practice. And so we're just going to stop treating pregnant women altogether.
I take your point about the court and or some of the justices on the court and their sort of convenient textualism or textualism when it is convenient and serves their means. There was also this exchange. It made the rounds on my Twitter and on my Instagram. This is from Jessica Valenti, who's about my age. So she grew up in a post-Roe world, and she tweeted...
You're a millennial. I want to be
a millennial, a mortgage millennial. But I think this is the sentiment for a lot of us, which is she tweeted, I don't know how to raise my daughter in a country where the Supreme Court is debating how many organs are okay for women to lose before providing health care.
That's the tragedy of these times. And I've been reminding people that we're still on the arc towards women's citizenship in this country. There's the ERA that hasn't been ratified yet. Countries all around the world have instantiated women's equality in their constitutions. Ours still hasn't. And we might get confused that there's full citizenship by the fact that there are women in law schools and medical schools and things like that. But let's be clear, we are a country where its Supreme Court has taken away the right to be able to terminate a pregnancy and is now debating whether a woman's life matters at all. And then something fundamental to American law has always been that federal law trump state law. And so we see a complete reworking of our Constitution and our democracy.
When you say debating whether a woman's life matters at all, some people might say, oh, okay, they're being a little hyperbolic this morning. What would they put in their coffee? But do we have the sound of Justice Alito and in response, it's making these just what I felt were very wild claims? We don't have it. I'm gonna read it to you. Alito says the hospital must stabilize the threat to the unborn child. It seems that the plain meaning is that the hospital must try to eliminate any immediate threat to the child, but performing an abortion is antithetical to that duty. And the Solicitor General, who the next time I see her in a restaurant, I'm buying her a drink, she says, if Congress had wanted to displace protections for pregnant women who are in danger of losing their own lives or their health, then it could have redefined the statute so that the fetus itself is an individual with an emergency medical condition. But that is not how Congress structured this. Instead, it put the protection in to expand protection for the pregnant woman. Justice Alito from the bench is espousing the language of the Life at Conception Act.
Yes. Well, let's be clear. For Justice Alito, who claims that textualism is the direction to go, there is no text in the United States Constitution that recognizes embryos or fetuses. And in fact, the opposite is true. The first sentence of the 14th Amendment says citizens are people that are born. Specifically, that's what it says. And so there is this reaching that is taking place. And it's important what you've just said so that Americans know, because you're right. It's been framed that this is something that's hyperbolic. It's something that is unmeasured. People need to just simply be more reasonable in this. But let's remember, it's our United States Supreme Court that acknowledged in 2014 in a case called Whole Woman's Health v. Hellerstedt that a woman is 14 times more likely to die carrying a pregnancy to term than by having an abortion. So abortions are incredibly safe. They save women's lives. And we are a country where the maternal mortality rate exceeds that of all other peer nations. We rank about 55th in the world. And so those facts really matter, because what's left on the other side is really a death penalty for women in a country like this. I mean, let's just be clear about that. It's very dangerous in this country to carry a pregnancy to term. And in these states with abortion bans, they have not set a priority of saving women's lives, protecting them, and for that matter, caring for children after they're born.
Yeah, I mean, none of this is happening in a vacuum, right? So the politics of this, right? I'm paying a lot of attention to covering the Biden campaign in White House, and what they've been doing is taking not women who are the kind of the boogie women of abortion, where it's like young people who are just out there having too much sex and they have to go get 6 abortions before they're 16. It is women that are being affected by this, right?
Yes.
Women who want to have children, may already have a child, and doctors are saying to them, I cannot give you an abortion until you are septic.
That's right.
Those are, so I guess talk a little bit about the politics of this and how whatever they decide here might impact that.
Well, that's a really important point that you're making. It's kind of like the Rosa Parks version, right? So who becomes the poster children for this? And let's say there's tragedy all around, but we can think about Kate Cox's case. You know, many of these people who are now litigants are people who were anti-abortion themselves, or who wanted to be parents and found themselves in situations that were critical to their health, where they experienced near death and needed to be able to manage a miscarriage. You know, there's a lack of appreciation for science. About 20% of pregnancies result in miscarriage and stillbirth anyway. But those have become the kind of highlight cases in the wake of the Dobbs decision. These people who wanted to be pregnant, and there was failure. Women who were gestating fetuses without skulls, gestating fetuses without brain development, gestating fetuses where there might have been twins, but one had demised, and so you're gestating a dead fetus. These are the kinds of cases that are now making their way through litigation. And then let us not forget that after Dobbs, you had lawmakers saying they didn't care about 10-year-old girls pregnant and needing to go to another state to terminate a pregnancy, or the fact that now we have girls going into elementary school and middle school as mothers in the United States in the post-Dobbs reality, and lawmakers saying, well, so what? And I think the reason why these ballot initiatives have been succeeding is because it's not just Democratic women sitting across the table from their daughters, it's Republican moms who are looking at their daughters and saying, should my 10-year-old become a mother if something horrible happens to her by a neighbor up the block? And they're saying no.
Michelle Goodwin, thank you.